This week, when influencers let you down and how to avoid it, and why story is everything in your marketing, plus a couple of key diary dates you can use to help your PR this week. I'm a former journalist, broadcaster, and communications chap, and every week I hear of people like you who should be getting more coverage and more attention for what they're doing, yet disappear in the noise. This podcast is about getting your business heard. If you want to ask for advice or make a comment, head over to my Twitter feed at @thatprchap. Hello and welcome to episode 2 of this series 2. I'm sounding a little bit croaky because I've just got off a plane from the United States, so I'm a little bit jet lagged. So I hope this is still really valuable for you today, though. So let's get straight into the ideas you engage with most this week on my Twitter feed by either clicking or clicking to read more about them. These are the ones you engage with most, and my Twitter feed is @thatprchap, thatprchap. So the first one then, when influencers let you down. The message in this story was to make sure that any influencer you work with really does use your product. It sounds obvious, but when massive firms make this mistake, everyone else can make mistakes too. Gal Gadot of Wonder Woman fame, the actress who plays Wonder Woman, you might have heard of her better as that, but she's a brand ambassador for the smartphone makers Huawei. But the images of her loving her phone were actually posted using an iPhone. The star said it was posted by one of her team, but of course the damage was done because the implication was that even her team don't want to use these phones. Now, if you're using an influencer, make sure they really do like your product. Make sure you interview them. Make sure you find out whether they really do want to use it, because otherwise these mistakes are just too easy to make now. Unless you're really tech savvy, someone tech savvy will find out what happens, which is exactly what happened here. You know, getting them to wear a dress once might not make a difference, but a product which is seen as part of someone's lifestyle really must be something the influencer uses as part of their lifestyle. In this social media age, someone else is going to catch you out otherwise, as I say. So whether your product is an app, a service, a course, or almost any other product that you use on an ongoing basis, make sure you check with the influencer to make sure that they really are going to be using this and talking about it and not just doing one particular picture, which then gets shown to be a complete farce. And also, think about it as well. You might think that, Wonder Woman, she's a big star, maybe, and the smartphone makers are big companies, but influencers are now available to anyone, and they can be powerful providing you actually check that they have got a credible audience. So whatever size of business you're in, getting an endorsement from an influencer providing it's genuine, authentic, and they're genuinely using your products is still perfectly possible. So this applies to anyone. The second most popular tweet this week was about storytelling, and I've talked about this before, but again, seems to be popular, so let's mention it again. Now, if you're not in the UK, then you may not have heard of Boris Johnson. He's the current Prime Minister in the UK. Boris, as he's often known, great brand there, just one word, Boris, has made a numerous public gaffes over the years and mistakes, but his popularity has always been high, or at least it has been up to this point until he became Prime Minister. People think he's intelligent, but he's a buffoon on the outside. This is the brand story that has developed around him. He's done things like getting stuck on a zip line going across the River Thames in London, and he looked like he was flailing around looking like an absolute buffoon. But he's got this brand of being someone like us. He makes mistakes, but he's actually really clever behind the scenes, is the brand. Now, if you ask someone what policies he stands for, and this applies to business as well, remember, you'd be challenged to get an answer from anyone, but ask them what they think of Boris, and everyone has got an opinion. The brand is the same for every product and service. It's one word, 2 words, which sums up what you are about, what people feel about you. I was at an event actually this week in the United States with one of the writers for the Toy Story franchise. He works for Pixar. Several other globally successful movies as well. He's been one of the writers on it. And he made the point that people don't remember facts, but they do remember stories, which is what I'm saying. So what is a story about your product that makes it stand out? Did it develop from a painful experience? Was that why you started it or got involved with a company that's doing this? Or perhaps you were ripped off by someone and decided to start a business or move into something, or because you realized you could do something better. One caveat though, a lot of firms will just say, well, because we do it better. Well, who cares? People are more likely to trust a 3-year-old on the street who has an opinion about your firm than someone who's trying to sell products themselves. No one cares. Tell people why you're better. You've got to explain why and prove it. It's got to be credible. It's got to be realistic. Don't just go, we're the best. No one cares. No one believes it. It's so overused. One bonus mention this week for a tweet one, which I thought I would just cover anyway, even though it didn't get much interaction, was one about social media and podcasting. Now, in 2019, you are the media too. There seems to be this obsession with PR, but people think, oh, I've got to get in the traditional media. No, you don't anymore. If you get a niche podcast or a niche blog or someone who's reaching the particular demographic you want to reach, even if they reach 100 people of the right people, that could be far more effective than reaching millions on a national TV program. So think about the power of new media. The reason I brought this up is because there was a conference called WealthStack, which took place recently, and they actually set up a booth for podcasters and invited podcasters to use it for free to interview other people at the event, so the exhibitors. I think this is a great idea because podcasting kit can often be quite heavy, and for the sake of a couple of cheap microphones that, they're not expensive to buy a good podcast mic, and also it didn't need to be a soundproof studio as well. It was literally a booth because you want to pick up some of the atmosphere of the event as well. So they provided this facility so that podcasters could do this for free, and it's obviously going to encourage podcasters to go along and reach those target niche audiences. So you want to think about ways of getting involved with new media and getting on it. So those are three things I'm mentioning this week. Just before we finish, let's round up with a couple of diary dates, which are always great for social media or for hooking into a story with journalists, if you can think of a way too. October the 27th is my first one in the United States. It's Navy Day, which presents an opportunity to just about any firm, to be honest, to get involved in the United States. Discounts perhaps for Navy service personnel. Is your product water related, nautical, or even drinking water? Even it could be anything to do with liquid. It all could tie in. Even just supporting the Navy on social media would be worth doing. Are you someone that used to work for the Navy yourself? Remember, people love the human touch. They like the personal touch. So could you say, supporting my former colleagues in the Navy today? Something like that. Adding that personal relationship with the Navy. The 2nd of November, again, it's an American day, but it's National Housewife Day. And there's no reason if you're not in the United States to get tied into this. So the questions you want to be asking here is, how does your product relate to housewives? Do they use it? Could they use it? Is there something about being a housewife that would allow them to use your product more or differently? Can you demonstrate a housewife using it in your social media or in a press release? Is your product going to potentially help or inspire a housewife? If you need to try and get these stories and you haven't got any that you can think of from friends, contacts, or family, then reach out on social media. See what your customers are saying about this. See how your product could relate to National Housewife Day. Make sure you use the hashtag in your social media and get that out there. It could be perhaps you've got something which gives a really interesting twist to the story if local media or national media are covering the story, and you can get your voice in there as well. As I always say, there's so many national, international days and national weeks like this. Just Google for them, search for a term like National Days, and you will find something to tie your product into. So that's it again for this week's Bite-Sized Public Relations podcast. Don't forget to go to my Twitter account at @PRChap and click or like anything that you want me to go into a little bit more, and I will update you on that next time. Don't forget to subscribe also to the podcast on whichever app you're listening to this right now, and to my Twitter feed as well. Have a fantastic promotional week.